Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Democracy and General Purposes Committee. If the fire alarm does go off, as we haven't got a scheduled fire drill, we assume it's an accurate report of a fire incident, and we will wait for Democratic Services officers to establish a safe route out of the building, and hopefully they will then tell us what it is and we will follow them. Can I ask anyone who has a mobile phone to please put it on silent mode so that we are not interrupted, and ask members to be careful with their microphones and switch them off once they have finished speaking. May I finally ask whether anyone other than the Council's webcasting service is intending to record this meeting? That's not to stop anyone, just so we know. No? Okay. As Councillor Mackay is not here, that's not a surprise. On with the meeting then. Item 1, apologies for absence. I have had apologies from Councillor Houlihan, who has to deal with a serious family illness. I'm sure our best wishes are with him and his family at this time. Do we have any other apologies? Thank you very much. Notification of substitute members. I'm not aware of any substitutes present. As it was such a late occurrence, that's not surprising. Urgent items. We have had an addition to the agenda, which is item 13, which is nominations to the Medway Valley line. Is it agreed we take that this evening? Thank you, members. We move on to disclosures. Notification of visiting members. I'm glad to see Councillor Perry, Mayor Emeritus, here. If you'd like to come forward.
Councillor Perry, good evening, members. Councillor Perry, for agenda item 14, I think it is. I would like to speak if that's possible.
No problem, Mr. Councillor Perry. I don't think we've got any members online, so that's all the visiting members. Disclosures by members and officers. Just note that I am a member of the Community Rail Partnership Medway Valley Line item, which is on the agenda. Therefore, I shall be refraining from any vote should there be a vote being taken on that appointment. Disclosures of lobbying. No? To consider whether any item should be taken in private because of the possible disclosure of exempt information, I intend to take all the items on the agenda in public. Is that agreed? Minutes of the meeting of the 22nd of September, which seems an awful long time ago. Does anyone have any corrections to these minutes? Excellent. Well, I'll take that as proposing that they're an accurate record. Is that seconded? Councillor Gooch, thank you very much. All agreed? I shall sign these in due course. Presentation of petitions. We don't have any. Question and answer session for local residents. We don't have any this evening. Questions from members to the chairman. We don't have any this evening. Committee work programme. Ryan, did you want to say anything on the committee work programme?
Nothing to add, Chairman. Thank you.
No, that's what it is. Thank you very much. Any questions, members, on that? If not, we'll just note that. Thank you. Move on to item 13, nominations to the Medway Valley line. Thankfully, we have a nomination. This is important because in order to maintain the council's input into this organisation, which does some valuable work around our railway stations and access to and from our railway stations in Maidstone, we do need to make a nomination to fill this post. Kimmy Millam has already taken part in some work for the rail partnership, so I'm very glad personally to see her nomination come forward. Any other comments on the report? So can I see a proposer for Councillor Minham? Is that second Councillor Wilkinson? All those in favour? Be it noted I'm abstaining because of my involvement in the partnership. That is agreed. Thank you very much. That will be a relief to everyone involved. Moving on to item 14, Community Governance Review. We'll take the introduction first and then we'll move to the visiting member. Mr. O'Connell.
Good evening, members. I don't plan to go through everything in the report, as I hope it's structured in an understandable way. However, I do intend to go through each of the recommendations with some supporting explanation to assist the committee. Just get those in front of me. So the first recommendation is that it be agreed that requirements set by council from the previous CGR to ask residents of the Grove Green area about the community governance of their area has been met, and no further proposals for Grove Green and Thurman West to be taken forward. So the relevant paragraphs here are paragraphs 2.5 to 2.7. And I think the case is fairly self-explanatory that's made there, that in the consultation the responses were so overwhelmingly for staying as they were, that we have discharged the duty that was put upon us by council when it agreed the previous community governance review to ask the question again, which we've done, but the response seems clear to me. So I'm not recommending that we go forward with a proposal to stage 2 consultation for that area. Recommendation 2, the proposal for a Maidstone Town Council as set out at Appendix 1, be agreed for stage 2 consultation. So first of all, I think it's important to note this recommendation is not a decision on forming a town council. That will be determined by the outcome of the review. The recommendation is to take forward the town council proposal to stage 2 consultation. It is important to understand the scale of that proposal. A town council, this town council in particular, has the potential to be a significant entity. It is not comparable in size to any of our existing parishes, having a significantly greater population than all of them. In fact, it will be close to being the same size as the rest of them combined. Likely making it the second or third largest town council in the country, depending on how the population figures actually fall out, and as a result has the potential to generate significant resources from a small precept to spend in the town council and to look after, to spend the town centre and to look after the town. The initial proposal, though, is for a town council that owns the allotments in the area, a parish council duty, one of the only duties that parish councils actually have. And ultimately, given the drivers for the review that set out in the terms of reference, to be a home for the mayoralty of Maidstone, but not immediately, given that the borough still exists. Should the town council be formed, there will be choices to be taken over time about the transfer of assets and delivery of services in the town. Although it is easy to get caught up in the creation of the town council and the significant work and choices that itself will involve, we have to remember this is a proposal for the long term to be thought of in terms of 10, 15, 20 plus years in terms of creating an entity for the town of Maidstone. There are examples of town councils of similar size to Maidstone that do a lot of good for their communities with the resources to do so. They represent and provide for their areas as good community governance should do, and this is a community governance review after all. I particularly want to draw the committee's attention to the papers in particular on the subject of precept, which is set out in 2.21 to 2.23. Whilst precept is not a direct factor for a community governance review, it is important to the community and good decision making that these are considered. I would anticipate that precept levels would be low, at least to start with, but let's not forget we're talking about setting up an independent, democratically elected body which would be separate from any council. It is also, I'd just like to clarify, not a replacement for the borough council, as I've read somewhere recently. As considered in 2.22, having a single large town council is an efficient way of having community governance in the area, where I point out the minimum council sizes you would expect elsewhere. This is one single, very large council. The low end of parish precepts across the borough is currently about £30 a year. Some of our parishes already levy £30 a year in precept, ranging up to about £180 a year for some parishes as well. I would anticipate that the initial precept for this town council could be significantly lower than that, given its size and the resources it would need in its first year are going to be fairly limited, as it will be employing a clerk, for example, and have other things that it needs to do to get itself ready for operation. But because of its size, the number of properties in the area, a low precept would still raise significant resources to be spent on the town, on that representation. The report also notes that if no town council is formed, charter trustees would be needed with their precept raising powers in order to hold the Mayor of Maidstone and the paraphernalia that comes with that. So as for the actual proposals being put forward, Appendix 1 details those. I hope you've all had a chance to read them and have seen the maps. In particular, parish warding has been a careful exercise to recognise feedback from stage 1, including community identity, and to achieve electoral balance, especially as our existing wards, borough wards that is, rather than parish wards, do not map perfectly onto the unparished area. Some of them overlap into parished areas. And in response to a question I got earlier, just to clarify, the colour coding in the table that's put forward to show electoral balance, red would mean that an area was out of balance. There are no reds in that table, fortunately. Orange means it's between the 5 to 10% out of the average range, but is acceptable. And green means it's within range of 5% of the average electorate. So that table in front of you does display a balanced electorate with the parish warding pattern. The proposal also includes the naming of the council as Maidstone Town Council, particularly creative on my part, I thought that one. Maidstone Town Council, and of the wards in there as well. A couple of those are highlighted where the names have been changed or do not currently exist or have not been used in the past. I would welcome feedback on those as part of the Stage 2 consultation for sure. It also sets out the council size in terms of councillors, and the number arrived at is 22, which is a combination of a good size, because this is going to be a large organisation potentially in the future, maybe not straight away, but in the future it could be, and therefore it could have a lot to do. And 22 provides a reasonable number of councillors for them to be able to manage that workload on the town council. But it also allows for a balanced electorate to be achieved across those parish wards, as I've demonstrated in the papers. The proposal also sets out for transparency how we would expect the transition to a new council to go, should it be agreed to go ahead at the end of the process. So at this stage, we're talking about going to Stage 2 consultation, where we're going to obviously expect people to respond and give us their views. But should we go ahead, I thought it was reasonable to set out what would happen next, so everyone can see that when we consult with them. So a shadow council would be appointed to carry out the significant work required, which would be prior to the first elections of the Town Council in May 2027. All of that work would be coupled with the timings and work of LGR in order to deliver a solution that can achieve the aims of a home for the mayor and providing third-tier representation for the town, the only part of the borough that does not have it currently, as we move towards unitary councils. I think that's a short way of me saying there's going to be a lot of work to do in the year 2026-27 to prepare for everything that's going to happen in May 2027. So we should be going into that with eyes open. Recommendation 3, the Stage 2 consultation content Appendix 2 be approved, the final content of the consultation material, including the communication to households, be finalised by the Director of Strategy, Insight and Governance in consultation with the CGR member working group. So Appendix 2 sets out the broad content and approach for the consultation. It's been kept deliberately flexible to allow wording to be drafted and amended as necessary and to respond to questions as they come forward. However, the key point with this consultation is that, as previously agreed, we will be writing to each unparished household to make sure they are at least aware of the proposal, even if they do not respond. Having said that, I hope they do respond, as I would welcome the views of the community in shaping such a significant proposal. Recommendation 4, the assessment of the Maidstone Town Council proposal against objectors to the review set out in the terms of reference at Appendix 3 and the consultation summaries Appendix 4 be noted. I'm not personally a big fan of noting recommendations. My team will know that quite well. but I have used them here to draw councillors' attention to the consideration and assessment in particular. The proposal before you has been assessed against the terms of reference that council agreed for the review, and it is on the basis of that assessment that I'm recommending it to you for stage 2 consultation tonight, because I think it achieves the aims that council set out for this community governance review. Thank you, and I'm of course happy to take any questions.
Are there, are there any immediate questions? I'm going to take Councillor Perry, but I just wanted to know whether there are any immediate questions, not speeches questions. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted, Ryan, if you'd be so kind as, in terms of the stage 1 and the response, what that represents as a percentage of the population for what is proposed for the town council area. Just wanted it confirmed.
Yeah, it's about 0.5%.
So what we're being asked to make a judgment on is on the basis of a 0.5% response this evening. Am I correct with that?
So you aren't being asked to make a judgment on the basis of the response to the stage 1 consultation alone. Okay. You're being asked to make a judgment on the basis of the assessment of the proposal against the aims of the terms of reference, okay, which has numerous drivers and reasons for being held, which are set out in the terms of reference. And that was one of the reasons for drawing councillors' attention to it. But also, as I've stressed previously, we aren't talking about going ahead with the town council here tonight. We're talking about going out to stage 2 consultation, which was always planned to be the larger consultation, because we learnt lessons from the previous community governance review, where we got a very, very limited response to stage 1, and we got a much greater response to stage 2. So we're looking to maximise that and get the views of residents on the proposal in total. And if you look at Appendix 2, you can see the sorts of things we'll be asking in that stage 2 consultation.
Thank you for answering a number of the questions I didn't actually ask, but that's obliged. Thank you.
Thank you. First thing I must say is so much work has gone into this and I'm very impressed. Can I just ask one thing that did throw me, and it was about allotments. I understand parish councils have a duty to run allotments because actually at the moment the borough council can't if the allotment is in a parish area. So I get what you're saying, but what I don't quite understand is that why pick on allotments apart from that bit of legislation? Because doesn't it apply to car parks, toilets? I just can't get my head around it. I'm sorry, can you help me?
As Mr. O'Connell said, one of the few, there are a couple of other minor ones, but no one provides public bath houses these days. But so we can forget about that. But one of the few principal duties, as opposed to powers, that parish councils have is to provide allotments. So it's because it is a specific duty as opposed to power. There are a few other minor things which are a bit esoteric, but public bathhouses being the main one, as I said, but no one provides those anymore. Now, unless there are any questions, I'd like to turn to the visiting member, Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Chairman, members. I must say straight away, I'm speaking on my own behalf and I'm not representing my group in any way. But I just wanted to come here tonight because this is such an important issue and one I personally feel very strongly about. I very much support what has been proposed in the paper. I read it very carefully and I think it's a very well put together paper, I really do. And I do support what is said in option 1. Now, I've been a long-standing parish councillor as well as a borough councillor, and I know how important parishes are. In my personal view, parishes and town councils as well, because they are essentially the same thing but on a bigger scale, are the bedrock of our constitution in this country. Always have been and certainly are, in my view, still. And I think that is very important to remember. What surprises me about Maidstone is that there are quite significant areas that are still unparished. And I think that the big benefit of this change will be that you will have a town council that represents all the main areas, particularly the current unparished areas. And I think that is very important. But above all of that, going over to a unitary system, and I'm certainly not against that. I think in some ways I think it's a very good proposal, but it does widen the gap between residents and the unitary. At the moment we have the districts and our borough in between, and many of us are very close to our residents. That is in danger of disappearing to a certain extent if you have the unitary system. So the town council, particularly such an important town as Maidstone, which is the county town of our borough, will have an important role to play in representing its residents. And I think that is very important, that bridge between the residents and the unitary authority. I think the question of the precept has been very well explained already, so I won't go into it, but I think having a town council rather than more individual parishes where you'll get the economy of scale as well, and I think it'll bring those areas in as part of the town. I think that's a very, very powerful argument. So all in all, I just wanted to say that I strongly support this proposal. I think it's absolutely important that the town identity remains. And as an ex-mayor, and I know there's at least one other ex-mayor in this room, it's very important that we maintain the mayoralty. That is something of not just our tradition, but it's something that stood this council for the last 500 years. You can see the names on the board. My name's there. Councillor Gooch's name is there as well, and that is incredibly important. So I know there's a lot of detail you've still got to go ahead with, and I fully understand that. But the principle, I think, of a town council is very, very sound, and I would urge you to really support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. I don't know whether I should feel slighted that you didn't mention me as an ex-mayor, but...
Councillor English, I'm absolutely mortified. Of course, I remember when you came down to Staplehurst. I'm sorry, I absolutely, please accept my apologies.
It's all right, John. I'm only joking. But thank you very much for your comments. Coming from someone with your experience of parishes, it is important contribution. I've been involved with a number of parish councils, as people know, and I still am. And I believe that there are disadvantages with parish councils, and they take a lot of people and organisation to run. But what they do is involve a large sections of the community, and they also provide an institutional framework which even the best residents associations in the world can't do. And we've seen recently with the extension of Lewes Parish Council to take in the old North Lewes Residents Association area, the importance of institutional strength of parish councils. We have a number of important funding initiatives going on in the borough. We have community halls, we have facilities. Having the institutional strength of a parish council in the town area will be very helpful as the development in Shetway and Seneca, for example, with the funding boost there goes forward. And it has, and it's not as if we're pacing unknown territory. If you look at Wiltshire, which it became a unitary authority, county-wide unitary authority, or Shropshire, for example, massive devolution took place to Shrewsbury and Salisbury city councils, and it's been a major success for both the unitary authority and also for those successor, if you want to look at it that way, authorities. Of course, we are not making a decision here, that will be down to the public, but I do feel that given the potential upside of this proposal, that we must go forward with the consultation. If we end up getting an adverse reaction, then that is what will happen. But I hope personally to see this proposal go forward. But certainly at this stage, we're only talking about a consultation. Finally, I would say that whatever one thinks about the route ahead, the sheer amount of work that Ryan and his team have done on this governance review has been outstanding, and it's not just quantity of work, it's quality of work. It's very good. Oh, just to say one thing about the Grow Green part of the consultation. It may seem to some people that the consultation on Grow Green was a waste of time. Actually, no. I'm a member of Boxley Parish Council, and I have to say that in some ways it was very good for Boxley Parish Council to have to examine itself and to pitch to the wider public, and that pitch has been successful, but I think the actual process has been very good for the parish council, and as that will actually stand it in good stead in days to come. So I'm glad we did the review. It has not been a waste of time. Councillor.
Thank you. Obviously with the local government review reorganisation, whatever it's called, I should know by now, shouldn't I? As I think we heard, the distance between the members on that unitary authority and residents will increase, and that is a clear worry. It is also a worry if we ended up in West Kent. Maidstone Town Centre could be the only non-parished area in the unitary authority, and that would be a significant disadvantage to us. So despite us being doomed, as the article suggested, I think this is not a replacement, but it is a layer of government that I think will be incredibly useful. Clearly, Ryan and his team have done a lot of work on the boundaries and the papers and so forth, and again, like others, I commend those. I am, however, Ryan, very, very disappointed that you went with Hermitage and not Hospital. Hospital ward's got a certain ring about it, hasn't it? But hey, I understand your reasoning. I do think some of the you mentioned the issues of precept. I learnt today in terms of the modelling for LGR that the council tax equalisation is being modelled on an average level across the new unitaries. And as we're the second highest council tax area in the county, that means that our council tax would, if that was the political will of the new unitary to follow that model, it would come down. So hopefully that will provide a little bit of comfort for people paying £20 extra a year potentially. So I do think we do need to get that messaging right in the consultation. Obviously, we can't make assumptions, but making sure we get that get those key facts across is important. And I would like to propose this per the papers.
wish to speak now, Councillor Gooch, or reserve your right?
I'd like to just make sure that on the recommendation, sorry, I just want to say that you spoke of the quality of work and the enormous amount of work that Ryan's team has achieved so far. There'll be a lot more to come. I would like to see that reflected in the minutes, please, because this is such a serious event in the history of the borough, and I think it's important that we recognise the excellent work that's going into it. It's not fly-by-night, it's not on the back of a fag packet, to quote our favourite personality. I just want that. So that's all I needed to say. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Jeffrey, are you prepared to amend your proposal accordingly and add a new point 1? Thank you. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Chairman. And I will endorse the comments regarding the officers' work, the quality of the report. I think it's been excellent, and we are all grateful for the effort that has been put into it. As a resident of Grove Green, I am very happy to acknowledge what is a very definitive, clear outcome from that consultation. Indeed, we have far more responses just from Grove Green ward than we have from the rest of the unparished area of Maidstone regarding creating a new town council. And indeed, I made a point of emphasising the response rate as it is, which is 0.05%. Now, that's just over 300 people, and it's not clear, to my mind, there is no clarity in terms of anything in favour of that or against it. I would have hoped that before we committed ourselves to moving into a second stage of consultation and all the costs and money that's involved in delivering that we would have hoped for and sought a little bit more of a response from the people who we are here seeking to represent. There has not been such a response, and I accept that because personally there are aspects of the mayoralty and the role of Maidstone as the county town that I feel very attached to, but I can't get away from the fact that we are making a decision to go to stage 2 when 99.95% of the residents who are affected by this did not respond in any shape or form to the stage 1 consultation. Now, we didn't set ourselves any specific parameters in terms of what we were seeking to get back, but such a small response gives us no indication on which to base a serious proposal going forward. I'm not going to be I won't be voting or proposing an amendment this evening, but I will be voting against this, I think, but I will continue to work with the officers, with the committee, to get the best outcome, as I see it, for Maidstone. We don't need a town council to maintain the mayoralty. The names can stay on the board, including yours, Clive. But I think that we are really and truly sort of imposing something on the vast majority of the people in Maidstone who frankly don't care. Thank you.
I don't know where to start with that. I really don't, so I won't. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. The other Councillor Thompson also wishes to speak. But he has ceded first place to me. Thank you very much. I should first of all also like to congratulate Ryan and the Democratic Services staff on the excellent job they've done in pulling all of this together. It's all potentially very complex and it's been very good. The proposals have already excited a lot of comments, not least among my fellow councillors. I have to confess that for most of my life, or much of my life, I've not been a great fan of parish councils, harking back maybe to my time running governor services in KCC Education, when the so-called lowest tier of local government had the right to nominate governors. I believe they still do. Some places required complex arrangements. For example, if 3 parish councils had to share 2 places on a primary school governing body, out in the sticks, technical term. But my view has mellowed with time, and I see they do perform some useful functions. Another thing of which I'm not the greatest fan is LGR. I lived through it all the last time, was that really 25, 26 years ago, as a senior officer at the County Council. The current hybrid arrangement with Medway was very much a compromise solution of that time, and if I may say so, a victory for the then Chief Executive of KCC. It may have been a victory for other people, but it certainly was for him. I do not disagree that we need to organise ourselves as efficiently and effectively as possible, but one of the things I find unappealing about unitaries is their potential for remoteness from the population. So the proposal for a Maidstone Town Council has a lot, I think, to recommend it, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The proposal on the table this evening is to take the proposals to a further stage of consultation, which will undoubtedly give an opportunity for more detailed discussions. This seems eminently sensible to me, and I should like to support that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson, and staying with the theme, Councillor Thompson.
It is an honour to follow Councillor Thompson, but I would say that, wouldn't I? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I add my enthusiastic applause to Ryan and his colleagues for past and future services in this area. Councillor Cook brings us to a useful Socratic dialogue. It's good to pose a hypothesis and test it. We met on a pavement in Grove Green a few months ago, and my senior councillor friend pointed out to me that my mission to deliver leaflets to campaign for a position on Boxley Parish Council was, he didn't say unusual, but it was out of the ordinary. He felt, I'm not trying to boost my own reputation at this point, but I would like to thank Councillor English for his support at Boxley Parish Council, for his energies in contributing to our engagement as a parish council across Boxley Parish and with Grove Green in particular. The lesson surely is that successful parishes are, amongst other things, those that engage with the residents that they set out and claim to serve. And that is what we did. We held, amongst other things, public meetings. We went forward to make objective and unbiased appeals to the residents to show what the benefits were of having local parish representation without putting ideas into their head as to what it is that they should vote for. And as we've heard, the response was very energetic in Grove Green in particular, and also in Thurnham West, which colleagues will remember that I have some previous history in promoting. The public found it really difficult. Many people expected Maidstone Borough Council or others to turn up and say, we've got a plan. This is what we think should happen, argue for it, and then expect some kind of debate or adversarial combat about it. They found it really difficult to get their heads around the answer, we don't have a plan, we're simply asking you what it is you would like to do. Here is a group of people that are offering you either an existing vision of community or potential ways of doing that in the future, and how local people can serve you. How would you like to see that happen? And they found it difficult to get their heads around. There is a serious degree of cynicism, of negative feeling. I think the word the phrase that was used earlier this evening was not caring. Our communities will rise or fall on local leadership. It is not about the structures of our local government that's important, it's about the people doing it. But you can't have people doing community work, you can't have local leadership if there's some structure to do it in. And there is no ideal structure to do this. I'm not claiming that I know what the ideal structure would be. But a debate that simply says, let's spend less, let's keep taxes down, let's simply settle for whatever the unitary arrangement is and assume that that will be enough to offer leadership in our local area, I think is a very poor model. Indeed, a local journalist a few days ago put out an article that started with, that was headed with the headline, Doomed Borough Council Plans to Replace Itself and Keep its Mayor. It's a delight to have past Mayor Councillor Perry with us making part of the argument for the mayoralty. The details of that are more complicated. Councillors complained in social media about that headline, and I note with some relief that a few hours later the Kent Messenger did change the heading and change it to a far more neutral and objective statement. Maidstone Borough Council sets out plans for new 22-seat town council ahead of local government reorganisation. But it still opines on saving money and self-interest, which I very much regret. And I'm sure the ironies are not lost on us that the author of these articles is indeed a local parish councillor, which I cannot resist but pointing out. Councillor Cook is right. The figures before us show 0.5% engagement. The reason that the number was higher in Grove Green was because a group of people went to engage with their local residents. That is surely the way forward, and I very much hope that journalists or anybody else listening this evening will add to the drive for positive community engagement rather than pouring cold water, cynicism or otherwise, on the motives of people that set out to serve this community, who have done so in the past and may have ambitions to do so in the future, because many of us do very much care about Maidstone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Just stress what Mr. O'Connell said in the introduction. The drivers of this are not at stage one, are to a large extent about the right form of, or the perceived right form of community governance. So the stage, it is not unusual, however, in community governance reviews to get a very small response at stage one. Most people on consultations choose to reserve their ammunition, for want of a better term, until there's an actual proposal to respond to. That's human nature. Whether we're talking about consultations on recycling, waste, car parking, or anything else. So to give you a small parallel, I did a consultation in High Street Ward about 20 years ago about residents parking, which is a subject residents in High Street do in fact care very much about. On the initial phase we got, I don't know, 20 responses, which isn't very much about really. But once we actually got some proposals from those 20 responses, we actually ended up with 500, which in a single borough ward is, well, 497, almost 500, which in a single borough ward I thought was pretty good. So it's not unusual not to get massive responses until you actually have a proposal for people to see. I would also stress that this might not be the final stage, because we have had some interesting comments from some parts of the unparished area. So it is potentially possible that we might be looking at a stage 2 consultation now, setting up a town council, and then there being further community governance reviews in years to come. But that depends on whether the public in certain parts of the borough want to see that happening. So that will be driven. But again, it will also take into account good community governance, because as has been said, if you end up with lots of very small parish councils, well, they have to bang up the precept to ridiculous levels in order to even be able to afford a clerk. Anyway, are there any further comments, questions, observations? Yes, of course, Councillor Cook, of course you can.
Thank you, Chairman. I think, and I recognise that this is not an easy subject to deal with, and my own personal inclination would be more towards supporting a town council. But it's one of the things, through you, Chairman, saying that we don't expect a large return at this stage, but to get less than 1%, to get 0.5% in the way that we have, and then here we are, we're talking about a 22 councillor town council across 10 wards with an election in May 27, which will match the next elections that we have, which will be for the unitary. So we're having the elections in May 27 for the unitary, and what we're proposing here is to piggyback on the back of that, which makes absolute sense from a cost point of view, and I completely acknowledge that. But let's be clear about what the roles and responsibilities actually are going forward. Because whatever we do in this Maidstone Borough Council now, those services, those responsibilities will be transferred into the unitary. That doesn't leave an awful lot for a town council to do. Now, I've been around for long enough and worked with on a number of parish councils, as I know, and I respect the work that our chairman has done locally in parish councils. He's been a tremendous servant to Maidstone at that level. But frequently, there are a number of parish councils where they have principally almost a single item of expense, and that's the parish clerk. The services that they actually deliver, in terms of as a voice of consultation, I think parish councils have a huge role to play. So there are really good things that happen at that level. But we may be doomed, but I think we also need to be clear that if we have a unitary future in Maidstone, then we need to be working to make sure that the representation that the people of Maidstone receive on that unitary is actually something that is worthy of local people, by making sure across the board that we have excellent candidates to represent our communities at that unitary and make sure that they get the services that they deserve. My views on this remain the same. I can't get over in my own mind such a small thing, and to be making a decision to take it forward on what is 0.5% response rate. I'm saddened by that, but I can't support the recommendation apart from the earlier bits. And Chairman, if you would allow us the opportunity to vote on the different aspects of the recommendation, per se the Grove Green and Town Council. Thank you.
Give me just a second. I'm not quite. Yes, well, we can have a separate vote on that if you want. I could come back in detail because I think, Councillor Cook, you're making a lot of assumptions about the particular powerlessness of what would be the third largest town council in England, so, which I suspect would not be warranted by how things turn out, but then I would possibly say that, wouldn't I? What I can say is that I think we have pretty much said everything that is going to be said. So a proposal has been moved and seconded, which added an additional point 1 to the recommendation that, in terms of noting the quality of work, the quantity and quality of work by the Democratic Services team to prepare this report. I think that particular, sorry?
Can I just ask that it says Democratic and Electoral Services team, please? So it encompasses everyone who's worked on it.
Yes, I'm quite happy to amend that recommendation that was put forward. Now, I'm going to have a separate vote on that. All those in favour of that particular clause, that recommendation, the noting the work of the Democratic and Electoral Services team. Thank you. The new renumber 2, which is, it is agreed that, etc., that the recommendation on Grove Green and Fernham West not be taken forward. All those in favour of that recommendation? Thank you. The renumbered item 3, the proposal for a Maidstone Town Council set out in Appendix 1, etc., be approved for Stage 2 consultation. All those in favour of that recommendation? Those against? No abstentions, as everyone's voting. Renumbered Stage 4.4, the Stage 2 consultation content be approved, etc. All those in favour of that recommendation? Those against? Abstentions? Thank you. And finally, renumbered 5, the assessment of the Maidstone Town Council proposal against the objectives, etc., be noted. All those in favour of that recommendation? Those against? Abstentions? That's everyone. Right, those recommendations are carried. We move on to the final report of this evening, which is what everyone is obviously here for, which is the member training report, page 70 to 75. Did you wish to introduce this?
So I hope this comes forward as quite a positive report, really. I've tried to write it to be explicit about our flexible and responsive principle, in that we want to be open and responding to what members need and want to do in terms of their training, as well as obviously meeting the kind of statutory and regulatory requirements that we need to. So hopefully the report is self-explanatory, particularly the section 3 on the available options, including the flexible and responsive principle, as well as the plan training. But I'm happy to take on board any suggestions from the committee, or if people want to contact the team separately for their own needs, etc., then obviously we're happy to be responsive to that. Thank you.
I'd simply encourage members to do that, probably outside of the meeting rather than this evening, unless there's, because year on year, we do find that we could have sent more members on training than we actually do. So, and it is important. I think we can all agree on this very controversial point that it is important that we keep up with developments in local government and that affect local government. So please do have a look at some of the training courses and conferences that come through. I think there was one on the nighttime economy I was looking at the other day, which might be relevant. So for suggestions that to go to the officer team. Councillor Jeffrey.
Just a quick question, really. In terms of 3.1 new member training, and 2.6, the training that was put on last year, are the sort of 7 bullet points on 2.6, are they kind of picked up for new members as they come in? Is that the process? I know the new member training is wider than that, but I don't want them to miss the stuff in 2.6.
It's not directly analogous to it because some of those training sessions were put on kind of corporately, but relevant training sessions that are on similar topics or the same sort of thing that come around again. So sustainability training, it might be instead of carbon literacy, for example, we would look to encourage those new members to make sure they are trained on it as well. Things like Nolan principles, wider issues around interests and predetermination, those sort of things. Yes, we are picking up on those sort of things where they directly relate to the function of a councillor. But obviously, if corporate training comes around that we're applying to all councillors, they would be caught up in that too. So it doesn't quite map exactly those 7 bullet points because some of those were specific things put on last year because we had the whole new intake of councillors. But where there is relevant training, yes, we would make sure that's applied to the new members as well.
Finally, you may have noticed the new member of staff who has joined us. I'm just going to ask him to introduce himself.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. My name is Billy, and I'm going to be covering for Olivia while she's off for the next year on maternity leave. Look forward to working with you all.
Welcome, welcome. And at that point, I close the meeting and thank you all for your contributions, even those I didn't necessarily agree with. It keeps us on our toes.